Planned Brotherhood is not affiliated or associated with Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is a registered trademark of Planned Parenthood Federation of America, Incorporated. And unfortunately, I don't have a joke at this moment about abortion, but give me a couple hours and I'll come up with one.
Hey, buddy. Thanks for listening to episode 101 of Planned Brotherhood. The first thing you might notice is that we've retired our old theme song. We want to thank Ed for putting that together for us. And we just thought we'd start with something fresh for the 100s until we get asked to take it down. Also, Uncle Tracy is back this week. And I encourage you to make a drinking game out of How Drunk I Sound. I apologize, but PJ keeps it pretty well on track. Enjoy the show.
It must have been, it must have been, it must have been a happy time. It must have been, it must have been, it must have been a happy time. The sun would shine, the candy bars, Kool-Aid flowing like wine, the comic books, the TV shows, the bubble gum, the kitty cat.
Nicholas, you are ridiculous.
I'll give you the most basic explanation, Mom, and I'm talking to PJ for using a mom phrase. Nicholas, you are ridiculous is the most clever thing my mom ever came up with.
Well, she came up with
And that's not saying much. Think about it.
But
It barely rhymes.
does she know that she came up with it, or does she even know it's
She
still
might not
funny?
know anymore. She knew at the time.
Yeah. But at the time that she came up with it, Google didn't exist.
Yeah.
Because that's how I feel like Mom would deal with issues now. Like,
she
let's
was.
just look
Maybe
up
Google didn't
cheesy
exist.
mom catchphrases, and then,
She had them, though. And do you remember the nicknames she made up? Of course you do, because Alvina texted yours to you the other day. But do you remember what my nickname was? First, what was yours?
Knicker, Knacker, Snacker, had a mighty weed whacker.
So it'd always be like, hey.
Which is kind of clever, right? Like, Tracy is astonished.
A little long.
It would
but
always be like, hey.
But that's what makes it funny. It's a little long.
I was Sawmill Sam because I snored.
It was like, hey.
I like that. Although your name's not Sam, so
No,
instantly
I know.
taken out of
It's
it.
kind of strange.
It was like, how you doing, Knicker, Knacker, Snacker, had a mighty weed whacker? And then.
Which is way too long.
Way too long.
And then she gave me one, which she said in a totally different way. I want you to give me the name and how she used to say it.
Okay. Let me think about it for, I'm going to say 10 minutes. Tracy, just do the Jeopardy theme for 10 minutes. No, I'll think of it. PJ.
No, you're off.
No?
Patrick James.
No. Let me have this moment. Peeper the Beeper had a mighty feeper.
J. Peeper
But
the beeper.
in either case, Knicker, Knacker, Snacker, had a mighty weed whacker. There's a had a mighty in there. Where did Mom grow up?
Well, there was a had a mighty in mine too. Peeper the beeper.
That's what I'm saying.
Had
Yeah.
a mighty feeper, J.
In both cases, she's using a phrase that
Could have called you Creeper Jay. But, you know.
I mean, she just wasn't insane yet. It hadn't taken hold yet.
she was kind of
Undiagnosed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. She
and not as far along as not as alcohol fueled.
I will say you're right.
She had it together enough to wear that Batman shirt every day of her 30s.
Recently, there's a future episode that explains my research the last couple of days, but I went through some VHS home videos recently. And you're right, Mom in 1988 to 1991, she wasn't as crazy. I mean, she's still socially awkward.
She was terrible.
She was terrible in
Hard
her
to
own
look
way,
at.
but she wasn't like,
Do they allow her where she's at to chew her toenails still? Or?
Oh yeah, she used to bite her. She had so many weird,
Yeah.
idiosyncracies.
Let me ask you this. Have you never bitten your toenails?
No.
I have, as an adult, I'll say.
I bite my fingernails nonstop, and I rip my toenails. I don't use nail clippers.
Ouch.
I get ingrown toenails a lot.
I'll definitely nibble at my fingertips, but as far as the toenails, you got to take a piece of equipment to that.
Yeah, like a fingernail.
No, wrong now. They're making fun of us
Yeah.
right now. This very second.
What do you think about that, Nick?
We can't use this
While
already.
While we were here, you were very reluctant. Like, I was like, hey, why don't you ask Sam if he has a USB cable? No, man, I don't want to ask him that. And I was like, well, you should ask him if he has one, or if he'll run to a store and buy one. And you're like, no, that's the last thing on planet Earth that you're going to do. And I'm like, oh, hey, call Margaret. See if she has a USB cable. Otherwise, we'll stop at a store on the way there. You're like, no, dude, I'm pretty sure she probably does. We don't need to call. Are you afraid of your friends?
I'm afraid of the telephone.
Oh, is that it?
Can we still call it the telephone?
But it's text messaging. You shoot a text over, hey, you got a USB cable? You mind running by Radio Shack?
I'll be honest with you, PJ.
We were running like 2 hours late yesterday.
Seems like a lot of work to me.
No, it saves so much work. We wouldn't have had to drive all the way back to your house for it.
We still showed up for the live show in time.
Yeah, but we would have had more prep time to get even more obnoxiously drunk.
It happened
unable to
fast.
speak.
What's it take? 5 seconds to set up the equipment and at least 30 to get drunk, you know?
I will say one thing. For the live show, it took in a crazy amount of time to set up the equipment. Like,
Yeah.
It was very...
Unpleasant, I'd say.
It's
Yeah.
these new fabulous studios. We're not used to it.
I almost quit the show on the pre-birth of our 100th. I almost gave up on it. I was like, this is taking too long.
You mean like for the minutes leading up to it?
Yeah.
Not
People
like
are counting on
gonna
us.
Quit on episode 99.
As it turns out, 3.
When can we quit? When is that okay?
Right now.
Really?
Tracy?
Is this the week that you guys finally announced that you stopped being brothers 18 months ago?
Let me put it this way. We're, as an analogy, we're discussing a divorce.
You are.
Yeah.
Separation?
Yeah.
And Tracy, we want you to know, most importantly, it's not your fault.
And I want you to be a co-host. Fuck
Co-host.
PJ. That's what I'm saying.
Tracy,
Oh,
Plan
wait,
Brotherhood
wait.
wouldn't
You're-
work as a title so much anymore.
You're a
but-
co-host?
Yes.
Okay, well.
I wish we had video for that disgusted look on your face.
Tracy,
You're right. PJ would be a better co-host than me if you had to choose, Tracy.
If I had to choose,
Yeah.
Melissa's sounding better.
she's sounding very adultish. Traceface, I have a question for you.
I have a question for you. Will you stop calling Tracy Traceface? That is the most obnoxious fucking shit in the world.
Probably not. Maybe one day. Maybe when I find something else.
How about
At my funeral, he'd
I'm
be
sorry
a
to
little
interrupt.
respectful.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tracy. One
No,
more
you're
question.
not. No,
That's
you're
all right. We
Can
we've been
today
doing
be
it
the
a lot.
day?
That I stopped calling him
Yes.
Traceface? I doubt it, man.
All right. Go on, Traceface.
No, I
You
had
had
a question.
Okay, he did.
When you got divorced, did you sit our cousin Tim down and have that talk with him? You know, the talk you see on TV, the it's not your fault.
No,
Mommy
because
and
he
Daddy
was,
are just
he was
bad
a
at it?
toddler. He wasn't even a year old.
Oh, well, that's pre-toddler.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought you got divorced more when he was like 2 years old.
around. Okay, maybe. I mean, it's been
Because
how
like
many years
Sophie's
ago?
2, and once Alvina and I inevitably get divorced, even if it is this year, I feel like I would still talk to Sophie about it.
No, I never did that.
Yeah, who
Never
cares?
did that. Yeah. For
Get
me,
out of here!
yeah.
It's your fault.
He was too little for me to.
right.
think I
At
had
2,
to
what
tell him.
conversation are you going to
Yeah,
have with
exactly.
her?
you know,
or
that
him?
was
Yeah.
it.
Were you very excited to like bring the newborn home and show him off and be like, "Look at my kid, he's got red hair."
Yeah, at first, yeah.
What-
I was proud of him.
Did you get mad about the like staying up all night screaming?
I had learned to sleep through a lot of noise years before, so she
Yeah.
was mad at the fact that I slept through it all.
As far as Sophie goes, she wasn't much of a screamer as a baby, right?
She usually slept pretty well, but
Tracy.
Yes, sir.
No. Feel free to belch, and then I'll come back to you.
I did already. I put the mic away.
I don't think the belch was actually on mic. There it was.
Yeah.
You brought it. Can you belch on command? That's my
Usually.
first question.
Usually, yeah.
Because
wow,
Yeah.
I can't do it.
impressive. What about the alphabet? And then I'll ask my other question.
Not from this end.
I remember our cousin Tiffany, PJ. This was daycare days, but I think when mom had taken over. But Tiffany, there was a short time where her and her mom and Tyler, at a very young age, our cousins, lived with us.
Yeah,
Tiffany taught us
it was
how
a
to
big,
belch on
tearful
command.
goodbye. She never taught me. I never
Under
figured
the
it
big
out.
toy? This is a memory we don't share.
What?
That's sad.
Are you
She taught
are you
him other things under the big.
are you saying that you were able to do it after she taught you?
No.
Okay,
But-
well that's not teaching us. She just showed us that she could do it.
I was reflecting on the fact that she tried to teach us.
Yeah,
Not worthy of a story.
not what you said. Not
We're gonna-
worthy of a
we're-
story. No.
We're going to cut that right out. Next question. Tracy. Who is the PJ to your Nick? Let's say you're me.
The PJ to my Nick, meaning before you got along or after?
Well, what I'm saying is PJ, up until 12 years old, PJ was, we were only a year and a half apart, so we bonded on a certain level.
Right.
And then Melissa came along when I was 12 and you were less than 12. So I guess what I'm asking is, did you have a family member that was close enough in age?
Terry and Lori were really close to me. We were born within 5
Age-wise?
years. Yeah, we were born within
But
5 years of each other.
I guess what I'm asking, and I know I didn't make this clear, special bond with any of your siblings at a certain age?
No. It was the
Which
daycare
blows my
kids.
mind because you're one of 7 kids.
Right.
There was me and PJ, and then eventually Melissa, and she was cuckoo for Cocoa Puff. So
Do you remember the first time they left us alone with Melissa? And she had one of those mobile things, like you lay down underneath it.
this one was a Sesame Street thing.
Yeah, Sesame Street. Could have been more than $8 or something like that. And we
from a
broke it.
Target or a Walmart
Yeah.
or whatever the 1994 version of that was.
I want to say Big
Kmart.
Lots. Maybe,
Big
yeah,
Lots.
probably Kmart, though.
Kmart, yeah.
Yeah, so somehow one of us, like, flipped back.
I
in
think it
one
was
the
both of us
recliners.
because at this time in our lives, first of all, we should not have been left alone with our infant/toddler retarded sister.
A lot of, like, 14-year-olds could have been, but not us. We should.
Not us, because apparently 10, and who knows what sparked it, but 10 minutes after Mom and Dad left for whatever, trusting us to take care of our little sister, we were wrestling on a recliner that was not that sturdy in the first
Yeah.
place.
Well, that's their fault. We got faulty hardware in that
So,
house.
one way or the other, either I lunge at you or you lunge at me.
We home.
While one of us is, yeah, I had a heart on the whole time. I'll tell you that.
Lunge back, lunge forward. Lunge back, lunge forward.
So at one point, the fight escalates to the point where the recliner is flipped back and we're both on top of each other. And, yeah, I said it and I'll
That's my
say it.
favorite part of the story.
I'll say it 10 more times. And this mobile, this $8 Target / Walmart / what did we decide? Big Lots?
Yeah.
This
Kmart.
Kmart. This
Big K.
Yeah. I think it was a Blue Light Special.
Probably.
Yeah.
Originally $9. You got it for $8.
Which is a deal, if you ask me.
Oh, right.
But so we flip the recliner back as we're fighting right on top of this thing. And we know instantly that that's the worst thing in the world that could happen.
About
Because it was-
halfway down, we broke the leg clean off, and it's like hollow plastic, thick
and they had
plastic.
just bought it.
Yeah.
They had just bought it. And it was the first or second time that we'd ever been trusted to be alone with our
Yeah.
sister. And so we fucked up, and we fucked up bad. And I remember specifically, there was still like a 2-hour window before they were home. And so we took some tape to it,
Yeah.
Scotch tape specifically. We're like, Dad will never notice.
It wasn't
And this
that.
is the
I
time
think
that
it
Dad
was
was
like,
a tyrant, and he was so scary. And we knew the second he
Yeah.
came home.
And the whole time, Nick was thinking in his head, how do I blame this on Pete?
I don't think
I wasn't.
I don't think we expected him not to notice. It was that we were going to be like, look, it still works just as good with 3 inches of Scotch tape.
I don't know. I
around
feel
it.
like for that 2.5 hour period of time, I was sure that he would notice the second he got home,
yeah, we were just
which
miserable.
he did.
Oh yeah.
But I
You
remember
guys were
like
probably
trying to
staring at it.
force our way through early '90s sitcoms. I remember watching Martin and trying to laugh with you,
Yeah.
knowing that Dad was going to come home. Instantly noticed because he had a fucktard radar, is what I'll call it.
Okay.
Which means that Dad comes to the room, knows that something's wrong. He's sniffing it out, but in the meantime, he's still being an asshole to us.
Yeah.
And that's
Telling
why
us
we were
what
so
a
scared of
miserable
him.
time he just had on whatever date he was on with Mom.
Yeah. Sorry, it's our anniversary.
I
Shit.
remember other instances of almost destroying the house. I remember 2 fire incidences.
I like that our almost destroying Melissa's $8 mobile counts as you almost burning down the house.
No, I'm just remembering like just times I was terrified like of something really stupid I did in the house and that I was about to get caught.
Give me one.
Well, I've got 2, both involving fire. One was
I know one of them then.
Dad was right in the living room and I was making like tomato soup or something like that and I had a wad of
In the living room?
idiot in the kitchen right next to the living room and I had a wad of paper towels that I put on the burner to see if it would light on fire. Sure enough, it did, and I threw it in the garbage can
Wait, you're saying you put paper towels in front of the stove burner and it caught on fire?
on the burner, and it caught on fire.
You're kidding me.
I throw it in the garbage can, the garbage bag, and the garbage light's on fire. And it's very big. Thankfully, batteries and all the smoke alarms are 12 years old. So no worries about him finding out that way, but just running back and forth to the sink with like the smallest cup I could find, honestly, throwing water on it.
And when he wanders into the kitchen to make his 8th bologna sandwich of the evening,
Yeah, it's going to smell.
it's going to smell like backdraft in there.
But that is one thing that never came up. I mean, it never got mentioned.
Of all the things.
And another time was much later, in almost towards the end of living at that house, where Mom didn't have the daycare anymore. She worked at the nursing home. She was probably already banging our future stepdad at this time. And then Dad would work too. So like I didn't go to school or anything like that. So I would be home like all day alone. Maybe you were around. Maybe you were at work at Suncoast or something like that. And Temple of Doom was on TV. I watched the scene where he drags the torch in the water that's full of gas, and he lights it, and he has the torch.
I hate to correct you. Last Crusade, definitely.
Yeah, of course, with the rats and stuff.
Sure.
Dad wouldn't have made it past the rats. Anyway, so I decide I'm going to reenact that scene perfectly. I take a can of gasoline, pure gasoline, and I fill this big orange Tupperware bowl that we used to have in there. I find a stick off of one of the trees in
The
the
orange
backyard.
one? I remember.
Yeah, the orange bowl. And I wrap some cloth around it. I swoosh it right through the orange bowl full of gasoline, so it's like that.
Molaram Shakti Day.
I've got it equally.
Molaram Shakti Day. Still a Temple of Doom reference, so that doesn't work.
I had a almost identical bowl full of water next to it. That's important. That's to put it out in. So I soak this thing in gasoline. Huge stick, huge piece of fabric wrapped around it. Light it on fire. Just fucking like singes my eyebrows off practically. It's so hot immediately, and it's at the end of my arm, and I'm not expecting this. So I go to just slam it into the water bowl. Of course, I put it into the one that's gas, and it knocks over and it spills all down that back porch that's in the back. And now that whole back porch is on fire. And I just ran in. I took the water bowl, I dumped it on there, and I was just running from the kitchen back and forth. And I put out that fire. That fire could have gotten crazy out of control. I mean, I put the burning torch out in a bowl of gas and then spilled that gas all down the stairs.
What year would you say this was?
You were 5 years old?
This was.
I think I have an interesting side note, but I'm not sure.
This was probably 98.
Okay,
And
perfect.
how'd you hide that? From your
I mean, no one was home. I mean,
Oh, that's
I
right.
was
Okay,
home.
okay.
And
it's in the back. You know how it was white? The whole
Right.
house was white, and they had that whatever. Like that was a little scorched up, but I mean, that was so close to the end, he never noticed.
Yeah, he was already
He
on
couldn't-
the decline.
He couldn't
But
see it through his tears.
I remember.
Plus, just like he never went upstairs, he was never in the backyard for any reason whatsoever.
No.
Like, it's so weird to own a house and to literally never walk to the second floor of that house or into the backyard, which he never did.
No, he never
It was
saw.
TV, kitchen, bathroom.
He never saw what state
Bedroom.
our bedrooms were in
No.
because we were upstairs.
Yours was pristine.
He never mowed the lawn. In fact, our neighbor Don. Did you ever know Don?
Oh, Don. Yeah, I knew Don.
Sure,
Okay,
Don.
let's
He was
talk
a-
about
he-
Don forever.
Well,
he was
you had a
chronic-
side note.
he
Just
was a
real quick to
chronic
explain who he
mower.
was. Yeah,
Okay.
he was our next door neighbor. Once we moved into your once childhood home,
Right.
and but he'd been there pre us, and he was very meticulous about his lawn.
He was gay and anal.
He
Yeah.
was gay.
Is redundant, I'm
anal?
Sure. Yeah, I mean the
How
guy.
do those two words relate? I've
the-
never heard that in the same
guy-
sentence before.
The guy mowed his lawn like what 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Constantly
he
short.
was. Yeah, so he was super crazy OCD about his lawn, and it got to the point where like me and PJ, our
And
dad-
we shared a shrub, so it was like his side of the shrub was pristine, and ours was ridiculous looking.
because our dad was our dad. Like he
Right.
was so lazy. He defined lazy. He didn't give a shit. I'm guessing he weighed 240 at this point.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So he can't pull his ass behind a lawnmower is what I'm saying. And he never taught us how to mow the lawn. Like I'm sure that's a birds and the bees story for somebody, but not us. Like we never got that lesson.
His attitude was, I might as well do it myself. It'll be easy.
Yeah. And then he never did it.
But he didn't do it himself.
Basically, we were taught to never mow the lawn.
Yeah, we were taught to be the most embarrassing house on the block.
Yeah.
Every block has to have one. He volunteered.
So embarrassing that our neighbor Don, our flaming gay neighbor, he would see that Dad would just let it go, and he never taught us how to do it. And so Don would pay us to groom our own lawn because he was so embarrassed by it as a neighbor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Take the property values down.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said you had a little side note for when I said it was in 1998 that I set the back porch on fire.
Oh yeah. At the same time that you said nobody was home, but I was definitely home. But the problem with 1998 was that I was obsessed with AOL.
Yeah.
And so I was technically dating Swirly T, who I'd never met at that point in
I
time.
think technically is the last word you would use.
Go
How
for,
about- how
go
does-
for epic.
I'll go either literally. Does that work?
No.
Otherwise, epic fail.
No, you were not literally dating her at all. You did not go on dates.
We
You
were on a
loose,
few.
dating was a loose term there.
Only in his hand.
Meaning I was figuring out what cybersex was, and I was really liking it.
Yes, you were.
Anyway, so yeah, at that same time that you set the back porch on fire, I saw it, and rather than calling the police or mom or dad wherever they were, I was reporting to Swirly T about what an asshole my brother was.
Isn't that cool though? Aren't you jealous that I set the back porch on fire?
I feel bad that you called that story back 15 minutes later, and then it just turns out punchline Nick's an asshole. That's all that
hated
was.
me for doing it. How long did you live in that house, Tracy?
We moved from Seattle to Tacoma in '74.
Let's give the address. If anybody can pull, let's do the address. 8215 South D Street,
Tacoma, Washington.
98408.
408.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. Okay, Google that.
I
Google
lived,
map it because there's Asians living there.
Take a
and
look. I bet
Asians are hot.
I bet that basketball hoop was still in the back.
It probably is.
I actually drive by there once in a while, and it's pretty much the same, but groomed. They got that big rotting tree that was in the front yard. Is
Right.
gone now.
Yeah.
That was gone while we lived there.
Oh,
No.
wow.
Was it?
It fell down on a Halloween day, and then someone came out and cut it up, and we had this big wood pile, and that wood pile stayed there until the day we moved.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, it seriously fell down one Halloween day. But we had all
Great
that
timing.
room in front of the front yard that was still like our property before the street. And that's where it fell. So it didn't crash into the house, which would have been my room, or into the street. And then also, that strip is where Barry used to park his big ass car when he used to live with us in that house. And one time, some motorcycle running from the cops hit it at like 110 miles an hour, went flying off. The whole neighborhood was awake outside. I was the only one to sleep through the whole thing. I remember Barbara filling me in the next day. I was like,
That
I was asleep dreaming about you instead of outside with you.
that speaks to your depression even way back then.
What do you mean that I was just sleeping through the
Yeah.
whole thing? I was
Yeah.
like, I can't be bothered. And oddly enough, I remember that I was sleeping in Mom and Dad's room at the time.
I have a question about the old house. When's the last time? I'll start with Tracy and then move to PJ and then to myself. Tracy,
Now that the rules are established.
you still live in Tacoma,
Yeah.
where that house lies.
Same neighborhood.
You're in the same neighborhood. So when's the last time you drove by that house, and what was your first impression? Knowing that, do you have a lot of memories there? Because I know
I lived there from '74 until '80. Then I got married.
years old. Sure.
Yeah. And then I got married, was married for a couple of years, lived away, lost my job, got divorced, and I moved back into that house
Mhm.
in about 80. No, I take that back. I moved into that house after my father died.
Which was 86 when he died.
86,
Yeah.
right. So then I ended up living in there while Rhonda was living there with Ashley,
Uh-huh.
and right before she had Cecily. So it was
Which one?
Either.
it was really strange.
Future and former guests. of
Yeah,
the
really.
show. Ashley and Rhonda.
It was really strange living in there after already having been out and married and
Yeah.
whatever, and then having my sister there. Ron and I did not get along at the time at all. Barely got along
What's
well.
the
but
age difference, you and Rhonda?
I don't know. What is she, 40?
I have no
knows?
idea.
I don't
haven't
know.
talked to her since.
Raised Jehovah's Witness birthdays don't mean shit to me.
No, that's true.
But
I know.
so I have no clue. So yeah, I basically lived in the house you guys live in. I lived there twice.
Yeah.
So every time you guys
and
talk
just to be
about
clear,
that
we
house-
don't live there anymore.
right, but I do drive by once in a while just for the occasional good memory and to see if the house is any better or worse than when any of us lived in it.
Right. And how
And
does it
it's
look
better.
from the outside?
Better.
It's definitely
Way better,
yeah.
yeah.
The deck is not on its last legs.
Yeah.
Although who knows how many people have lived in it through the years? Sometimes up, sometimes not so good.
Do you guys have a process when you're trying to fall asleep at night? Like, let's say you're having an insomniac Dave Attell type of night, right? Do you
Then I'm going out looking for the best burritos in town.
but don't you rely on something? Don't you rely on
Like,
something?
do I have a go-to?
Yeah.
Mine are always aspirations for the future. As gay as that sounds, like, what can I maybe do with my life?
There's nothing you could have said that would have sounded gay.
I'm serious. I like to do that when I go to sleep. Like, here's my goal starting tomorrow.
The only reason
And
this
then,
even-
luckily, I was too tired when I thought of it to actually want to go for it the next day.
and then you're out. You're out like a light.
Yeah.
The only reason I asked that is because lately I found if I can't fall asleep, which is unusual for me because I'm a drunk. So like once you get to the 18th beer of the night, you're like snooze alert. What I find myself doing lately when I'm trying to fall asleep and I can't, even when I'm drunk, is I'm going to walk myself through the 8-bedroom layout of our old house.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through it in my mind because I can remember every little nook and cranny of that fucking place, you know?
That would probably, I mean, I definitely remember, like,
Try it tonight. Try it tonight.
like, if I think
On
about
the drive home.
going into the toy room, there was the toy box on the right, and then there was
Right,
that
but even that's
closet.
juxtaposed. We lived at the house through a few different eras.
Yeah.
So the toy room was once a toy room. It was also Melissa's room
Yeah.
when she was born.
In which case, that area was still the toy box. But to answer your previous question about when was the last time we saw the house, I used to make a point every time I was on the west side of the mountains to drive by that house. But I haven't done that in probably 7 years. When I first moved to Yakima, which was 10 years ago, I would do it
10 years. Wow.
very often. Anytime we were over here, I would drive by that house, and a couple times went and visited Evelyn, the old lady neighbor that we used to have.
Who must be dead by now, I hope.
She's gotta be.
She's got to be. If she's not, she deserves to be.
Although if there's
You've lived a good life, Evelyn.
if there's something that tells me who cares if I smoke a pack a day, I'll still live to be 100. It's Evelyn told me that because that lady was fucking old and always smoking cigarettes.
Also had OCD big time based on her lawn assortments.
Yeah.
Yeah, she loved her lawn.
Yep.
But and she was always known as kind of a mean lady. But I remember lots of times, like, it's so bizarre to think back on this that I would, like, randomly just walk over to the 80-year-old lady's house on the corner
Yeah.
just to, like, say hi. And, you know, go inside and get a piece of candy or whatever like that and just talk for a minute and then go back and get yelled at when I hit a baseball into her yard. I think it was so fucking weird.
And she was known when I lived there as Queen of the Block. And oddly enough, her best friends in the neighborhood was Don and his
Yeah.
That's right.
and his late father,
the gay
Steve.
neighbor
Yeah,
we mentioned
yeah.
earlier.
And you know,
because
the
he lived there with his dad, Steve.
Yeah, and the
they were
crazy thing is that this was like in 74 for you, and it was literally like 20 years later for us, and it was the same thing.
Yeah, same dynamic.
Every
yeah.
other house, like, had neighbors just came and went, but there was always Dawn there, Evelyn there. She was in love with him. He was obviously a huge homosexual.
And half her age.
But we never
Right.
saw him take a lover or anything like that. Like, I don't remember guys coming over or anything like that.
No.
I remember he had a sister who would come over every now and then.
Because we picked up on his phone conversations with our
That was so terrible.
walkie-talkies.
Have we talked about that on
We-
the podcast?
We have. It's an early episode, but devotees will know what we're talking
so
about.
terrible. we used to
It started unintentionally.
We had these cheap walkie-talkies, and we could hear him on his cordless phone talking to whoever. So we're listening to him talk, and then we're pushing the button. We're saying things like, "You're a faggot. You're a gaywad. You got bald hair, and you're gay."
And why would we
Just stuff like that. And we're like, "Oh, I don't think he can hear us." But then he's like looking directly up into Nick's window, and we're holding the walkie-talkie right in front of our face, and fucking Salute Your Shorts is on in the background. And we're, oh god, it was so
Yeah.
terrible.
I was at my most.
Thank God he's dead.
and you
That's
felt
right,
so
he did
guilty
die.
for a day. Yeah, he died of an enlarged heart.
How ironic.
And the weird part was that nobody knew for till about 3 days until Evelyn started wondering where's Don.
Yeah, where's Donnie?
And went-
I remember
and went
she used
to
to
the
always
house.
come bring him dinner and shit like that.
And call him Donnie. Weird.
Yeah.
I mean, we actually lived in like one of those little neighborhoods that had personality. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
feel
we
like,
had a.
I don't
Well,
feel
you
like
had a
you-
Winnie Cooper on our block.
Yeah, I don't
And
feel
we
like
all-
you made it outside as often as I did, but I had
No,
the
definitely
bully
not.
on our block. I had the little gang of kids that I hung out
And
with,
you had the Winnie Cooper.
and I had a Winnie Cooper
Yeah.
plus
And the
like
child
2 cup
molester.
sizes.
And the
Yeah.
child molester, sure. Although
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
if he
true.
lived on our block. He just
We had the
did
child.
his
Did his business on the
yeah, he did
We
his
had-
praying on our
we
block.
had our child
That's
molester
Pete.
victim.
Hey, did you know that park got named after
Ryan Park.
finally?
Well,
Ryan Hayter Park?
no, that's untrue, PJ.
I
Fill him
mean,
in.
it might be now, but back when Ryan Hayden was still alive and after that incident happened, we'd go to that park and it was called Celebration Park.
No, just
But
recently.
he and I always referred to it as Ryan Park.
But within the last year, they finally
That's
because
awesome,
he
man.
reached a certain age or whatever.
And not to be any gay or anything like that, but I'd like to go see it now. Now that it's called Ryan Hayden Park, like that's what it should have been called. Hopefully, it's not the disgusting urine hole that it used to be.
Let's hope.
When I was there, it was like a big hole dug in the street that people filled with urine. Was that park? But it had a huge field. I got beat up back in the brush of it once, but yeah, when he and I used to go there, it
So
was
did
called,
he.
We called it Ryan Park.
Do we
you,
need
you
to-
know he's dead, right?
Yeah, I know.
Dirt bike accident.
Yeah,
Tracy was
I
actually the
think
one
so.
to alert me to it.
Of all things.
Yeah. A backstory should come from this, but instead I'll just say Google Ryan Hade, Hade, Tacoma, Washington, or look on YouTube for an Oprah video from 1996 when his mom was exploiting his death or his almost death.
Oh my God! Listen to how Nick is just railing into this terrible thing. His mom was exploiting it.
Yeah, remember the power pad?
That's the Jackie and Scott in you, dude. That's the person how
How dare you?
it is though, because listen to this. Ryan Hade was a kid. And this is just backstory. He was a kid. He was my best friend at the time. Granted, we were very young, and whoever you meet is your best friend. But
And he
was
lived
mine.
literally like four houses down.
Four
from
houses
us,
down,
yeah.
right on the corner, and he wanders into these woods by our house. There was a convicted sex offender
Earl
in those
Schreiner.
woods
Earl Schreiner.
who mutilated him and raped him and left him for dead, and he was found the next morning almost dead. So anyway, then his mom starts going on Oprah and stuff like that. And she would drive new cars and stuff like that. But so what we heard from Scott and Jackie nonstop was how she was
Our
exploiting
parents.
I literally heard mom telling me, like, she would always make the same joke, and whether or not I took it personally, it's a joke that, like, hey, maybe you don't tell your 8-year-old whose 8-year-old best friend just got his penis cut off. But it was always like, oh yeah, I should have let you go hang out with him that night. Then I'd have as much money as his mother. Then maybe if I
Wow.
maybe if
Mom,
you got
I
your
love you
boo boo
too.
cut off, I could be driving a new car every week, and it was all shit like that. Did she exploit it? I don't know. She took. I mean, in her defense, she started a foundation, she was one of those people, like the parent of a victim, who was like, I want to bring attention to the fact that this happened. As far as I know, she never touched his money, and he never touched his money. He died in his 20s, just completely randomly, and had never touched his money.
Yeah.
And left it not even to his mom, to his grandma, who took me to see Ace Ventura once.
All right. Well, fuck me for making a joke 10 minutes ago. Sorry about that.
Tracy almost married Ryan Hade's mom once.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
We were talking about that
Is
the
that
other
a
night.
ticket?
Though.
Let's hear about it.
Didn't you make out with her at a concert or
Yeah,
something?
that's it. That's it. I dumped her. I got her to dump her biker boyfriend. Well, I left my girlfriend, and we went and made out in the back. Yeah. And then she tried to cut my dick off, and that was the end of it.
So you're saying that when you were at the concert with her, that you had a girl and she had a guy with
Yeah,
her?
exactly.
Again, that's mom and dad shit talk then, because I heard that, like, honestly, I heard that, like, you and Ryan Hade's mom were all over each other one night at a concert.
They
Wait,
actually
this is
said
real.
that.
Yeah.
This is real.
Yeah.
No shit.
I've never heard this story in my life.
I remember a story of dad saying that you and her were, like, at a concert, and they said this is the time for lovers to hold hands, and that she reached over and held your hand, and you were like, "Let's go," and like went out.
Your dad said that shit
Yeah.
about me.
I mean,
amazing.
I remember that story, and it's not like I'm just like it's just something that I weirdly remembered because when
Wow.
you
I
showed
don't
me
even
the
have
concert,
a fragment of the story in my head.
when you showed me a concert ticket to when you saw Paul McCartney, I said, "Hey, you went there with my dad, right?" And you go, "Yeah," and I go, "Was that the time you and?" Well, I shouldn't say her name, but the time that you and Ryan Hayes' mom hooked up, and you're like, "No, I saw her at another concert," and I was like, "Oh, he doesn't want to talk about how he totally made out with Ryan Hayes' mom."
First of all, if you look up Ryan Hayes' mom on Google, you'll know that she wasn't very touchable. And number two, it was some.
I feel like anybody that's ever been on Oprah probably untouchable.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And what gets me is it was at some 50s concert, and she was like a row or two behind me, and we knew each other casually because of the house, the neighborhood.
Yeah,
And so we recognized each other.
yeah.
And I probably,
situation like that,
and
you
I'm
best
sure I
recognize.
told your dad. I said, "Hey, what's that?"
I
no,
Not worth repeating.
repeat
No.
it. Otherwise,
no, the point is, I'm sure I told your dad, "Hey, I saw while I was at the concert."
And he's like, "Yeah, I bet you saw her muff
Oh.
up close."
Which is so weird because your dad never, the way I guys talk to you, never talked to your dad like this.
Yeah.
So that kind of conversation would have never happened.
I mean, it was like, hey, let's just come home. I have nothing to talk to my wife about. Let's just talk shit about anybody who we know. It was always about you guys. It was always my mom instigating just what a piece of shit you were, or what a freeloader Barry was, or Rhonda for that matter. Like, it was always just fucking shit talk. And like, we just sat there and overheard every. Like, I can't remember if I witnessed something or if I just heard them say it. I remember mom, like, always talking about what a bitch grandma was. And, like, she'd be like, and then she said, "Oh, Jackie," and blah, blah, blah. And I would seriously be like, I've never heard grandma talk like that. Like, that would be really weird to hear her use those words and that tone of voice.
It'd be physical or anything like that. No, not possible.
Yeah.
No.
I remember when Terry lived with us and she left. That was a big screaming argument with mom.
oh,
That prompted that
Let's
whole
walk
thing.
right through this. Terry is Tracy's sister,
Uh-huh.
Number
our
two.
aunt,
The hot
and there
one.
was she had Tiffany, her oldest at that time, and she had Tyler too, right?
Yeah.
So
We talked about this literally earlier this episode, about how they all lived with us, and Tiffany supposedly taught us how to belch the alphabet, remember?
okay, well let's jump ahead then.
Okay.
At the end of their living with us, there was a big screaming fight between Aunt Terry and our mom, who are not even blood related.
Because Aunt Terry was the same way. It was a lot of, like, let's just talk shit behind the back. And so, like, mom would talk shit to us about Terry. Terry would talk shit to us about our mom. And it would turn into this whole thing. Terry thought mom was running the daycare all wrong and shit like this.
Right.
It was a whole bunch of stuff.
But she was living there, I assume, basically for free.
I don't know the finances.
I don't know.
But yeah.
The payoff for this story is she literally walked away with what do you call it, a billabong? What's that thing with the stick and the hobo sack at the end of it?
I've never known the word, but I know you've used it before.
Billabong, is that right?
I think it's called a sack with a stick on it.
Which Pee-wee made famous
It's
in Pee-wee's
called
Big
My
Adventure.
3 Favorite Wigs.
Yeah. But there was a big blowout between Terry and Mom. So much so that she packed her kids up. Like, literally, I think there was a kid on either arm. They were that young at that point.
Yeah.
And a bindle. A bindle. That's what it's called.
Plus, as Terry always does, is like posing for her picture for a magazine for who's ever watching. Like, look at what I'm doing now. I'm going out on the street.
Is the magazine Bald Weekly?
The problem with Bald Weekly is the pages keep coming out one at a time.
You just can't keep them in, no matter how industrial glue. I mean, like, I had a Time magazine that was so ratty, I tried the peanut butter solution on it. It was like 4 times as long as it should have been. Does anybody remember the peanut butter solution?
I do. That explains my tears. I remember the peanut butter solution.
Putting things right that once went wrong.
I remember liking Sliders so much that, like, I would sit in school and daydream about finding a wormhole to travel through and having a timer that would break every episode and we get it fixed right in the nick of time.
Did you also daydream about looking like Jerry O'Connell? Not Stand By Me days.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought I would be the Quinn if we all, like, my characters were probably me, you, and...
Yeah, and I called you Cue Ball for that entire amount of time.
I also remember crazy things. Well, okay, so Strange Luck was on the same time as Sliders.
Starring D.B. Sweeney,
Yeah,
of course.
but it only lasted a few episodes.
Yeah.
It wasn't a bad show.
It wasn't a terrible show.
It was
probably
back
better
on
than
YouTube.
Sliders.
It's terrible.
Is it worse than Sliders, though?
I haven't gone back to Sliders, but I feel like that's probably on DVD. And eventually that one, like, went to hell. There was, like, crazy robot spiders. I remember one episode watching way later where, like, all the characters were different. And the parallel world they went into was our world, where Sliders was a TV show. And Jerry O'Connell played Quinn. But at this point, Charlie O'Connell had taken over, literally on the show. Charlie O'Connell took over playing Quinn because he was an alternate universe Quinn who, when Jerry O'Connell left, he left. And everyone else left, like Wade left, and Carrie Werr was in her place. Crying Man was always there. Even Professor Arturo eventually died. But I remember in this episode where, like, so they travel into our universe where Sliders is a TV show that's been on for like 5 seasons at this point, and people are holding signs that say, like, bring Wade back and Jerry was a better Quinn and stuff like that. Like, it was very funny. It was very meta, I guess.
Very meta.
I've never known how to define meta, but I think that's it.
Whenever I'm asked to define meta, I just say Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Really? Why is that? I don't think I've ever seen it.
They totally dissect the whole Nightmare on Elm Street world. So you didn't know.
They made fun of it a lot in Freddy vs. Jason, which I went and saw in the theater for some reason.
I did too. I had a reason. I could see it for free.
Yeah.
Because I was working at that very theater.
I think you told me there were some nice boobs in it or something, and then that's why I went and saw it, to be honest.
Monica Keena's boobs, I think. No?
I doubt it.
She's in it.
Yeah.
I'd like to see her boobs. Probably not now.
Yeah, probably.
I'm guessing she's on her 4th kid right now. Monica Keena, look her up. Going back to Sliders. Sliders was working off the same basic formula that Quantum Leap perfected, right?
Did way better.
Yeah.
They did it way better.
Yeah. You mean
It's
where
like
it was like
it's
a
a
totally
new-
different situation every episode.
Yeah. From one episode to the next, it could be dinosaurs, or it could be red lights turning green instead of red.
Or Hillary Clinton is the president and Bill Clinton
Sure.
is, yeah. Which almost came true, guys. What do you think?
Didn't he come back one time as Forrest Gump?
Hillary
And then
Clinton,
he met
yeah.
Elvis then? I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember Sliders taking all those weird terms. Crying Man was always in there. But when it first started, I must have been like in 6th grade, and I was drawing the wormhole in my notebook. I remember in 6th grade, like, I was always that kid, and it reminds me now, and I hate to always bring up, like, hey, I go to school now. It's a fucking community college, but still, you need pencils.
You're not nearly as handsome
Hey,
as Joel
is that
McHale, to
Yakima
be sure.
Community College?
Yakima
So it's
Valley.
so it's not called Yick?
No.
YBCC, bitch.
But I mean,
Is that it? Did I get it right?
yeah.
Okay.
They're the people who, like, come every day to my morning class and, like, their hair is not combed and they're like about as mature as Tim, and they never have a pencil or a paper. They always borrow that from me. And I'm like, I remember that's exactly what I was like in like 6th, 7th grade. All my paper, all my notebooks, my spirals were filled with, doodles and shit like that. I never had a fucking pencil. I never had a pen. I was just gross. Like, there's still a lot of that in community college.
But now you're
Like, there's this guy who,
you're
like,
on the other end of the spectrum now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a guy who, he's the one that never has, always asks me for a paper, for a pen, or whatever. And he sits at the table in front of me, and he'll, like, lean back and scratch his head. And he's, like, literally right over my paper, like, the paper I'm taking notes on. Like, just scratching his head, like, fucking right over it. And, like, I've got to be at the point now where I tell him, I'm like, Fred, can you not do that? Like, what are you doing, man? Let's just fucking grow up. And he's talking about how he's going to join the FBI. I I've rejected his friend request on Facebook many a time, so don't worry, guys. He's not listening. Although he does see my Planned Brotherhood sticker on my laptop every day.
I was going to say, as a Facebook rejectee, do you know that you're being rejected? I mean, I know anyway. I'm like, I obviously requested you.
I know if I send a friend request and it's never accepted, but there's many times to where like I'll lose a friend. Like Trace told me, Traceface, I'm sorry, told me that that Barry left Facebook, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the friend I just lost because
Barry and married.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I couldn't figure out who it was. But that's what I do. So if an undesirable, as I call them, someone from work or something, friend requests me on Facebook, and I'm like, why are you doing this? You're just going to see all my masturbation or having a boner jokes constantly. I accept them, and about 3 days later, I delete them. They'll never notice. That's what I do.
Tracy.
Yes, sir.
Traceface.
Yes, sir.
Facebook. Trace Facebook. Let's talk about it. Facebook.
I have
First thoughts.
First thoughts. Love it. It's fun.
It is fun. Anybody that still claims to like MySpace, Margaret, who's in earshot right now, you're wrong. And it bogs down my whole computer.
And now
I feel like I'm on dial-up AOL every time I try and log into MySpace.
And it's all just spam at this point anyway.
Yeah.
and
Facebook's getting there.
and there has not yet been a pimp my Facebook.
Yeah.
site.
Plus, I don't get a lot of friend requests on Facebook from like fake people. You know,
Hardly ever.
there's a lot of like join this page, and I'm like, really? No, I
Yeah.
haven't joined the last 20 you invited me on. Can we stop this now?
But at that point, you're just on their list.
And you know why I don't? Because one,
And then we'll get back to Tracy.
like the last one I joined was Nice Blinker Dick. And I'm like, okay, I'll join that one because I'd like for my friends to see that I joined the group Nice Blinker Dick, because I do fucking hate that.
Yeah.
I'm sure all my friends have heard a story about me complaining about someone not using their blinker, or if they've ever ridden in a car with me. So that's fine. But then the problem with it is that then you get updates from this site, from this web page constantly. Like a lot of times someone will like create a page and be like, oh, this is a joke. People will see, oh, I joined this group and that's fun. But every now and then you have an admin that's like, let's keep this going. I'm going to make comments every 2 seconds. And it gets real fucking annoying. You know what I mean?
You see it come up and there's like, 193 comments on this. I'm not even going to read the first one.
And honestly, I haven't even 100 Facebook friends, and I'd say about 25 or so, a good quarter of them, I've just done the thing where I ignore all of their updates because I'm just like...
I haven't even given myself the time to figure that part out, which is my fault.
I mean, you just literally click right next to the comment, ignore. Because, like, I do it all the time. Like, yeah, I want to ignore your Farmville updates. But then it's like, oh, you can ignore the person altogether, and all they do are Farmville
Is that all
updates.
it takes? One click? Literally?
Yeah,
So
ignore.
you
I'm
don't
doing
know
it.
how Tiffany's doing lately on her phone.
I was never friends with
Tiffany deleted us back in
that's-
episode 61.
Yeah.
That's right.
But on my Farmville account, my prize Haas is named Tiffany. Haas was the wrong word.
I still got it.
I don't want to give up.
Let's start it again and say heifer.
Heifer. Yeah, she's my heifer.
My prize heifer.
But yeah, so I ignore a lot of people on there because it's like, I mean, a lot of it is like, you know, gotta go to the grocery store. Oh, my kids are so wacky. But some of those I keep, like Amber Kaner Hughes. Let's name drop. She's one of my Facebook friends.
Sure.
And it's always
Mine
about
too.
her kids. And I'm like, oh, that's sweet. You know, this is a lady that
Because
likes
she's
her
not
kids.
obnoxious about it.
Yeah, it's people who
I mean,
are
she
like...
is kind of, but so we've deleted her name
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
She's kind of obnoxious about it, but not in a way that
Nah.
bothers me. No.
Not super duper. Like they're
And you'll post an occasional picture of your
Yeah.
kid.
Oh, yeah.
And that's cool.
Sure. But there's a thing like when I watch reality TV and like somebody's talking to somebody else and they're like, oh, you know, if there's one thing I am, it's patient and I got love in my heart. And it's like, who are you talking? Are you talking to this person or are you talking to the camera? You know what I mean? Like, quit being so fucking fake. And I think that's what a lot of it is. Like, copy and paste this if you have the world's most beautiful child. Fuck you. Ignore. Like, that's all you post.
Because you do. You win. You don't want to make other people feel bad about
It's
it.
just dumb. It's like, oh, I'll feel like an asshole if I don't repost this, you know?
Yeah. What's the...
Or here's a fun experiment. what's the first 3 words that comes to mind from the first time you met me? Copy and paste. You'd be amazed at people.
No.
Don't, come on.
I haven't even bothered
Write a
to-
joke about titty fucking. You know what I mean? That's what Facebook is for, in my opinion.
I like a good tit fuck joke.
Yeah.
I'm the first to say it.
I'll copy and paste that.
RT. Tracy.
But I do think Facebook is fun, and I'm glad you were saying that, like, and I feel the same way that you do, like, kind of being able to think up a joke. We were talking about earlier about when Gary Coleman died and how, you know, we think of
we
a
all
joke
had a joke.
and probably a million other people had it, but that's so fun. You know what I
It
mean?
is.
To be like, oh, I thought of a funny joke. What I'm going to do, call somebody and tell it to them. No, man, you put it on fucking Twitter
I have
or Facebook.
Perfect example of this, and then let's throw it back to Tracy because he's not talking
Yeah.
nearly enough.
Are you going to talk about my funniest Twitter joke ever?
Michael Jackson?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Pete and I happen to be together. We don't live in the same town. But the day that Michael Jackson died was the day of our 52nd episode.
It's like mid-podcast record.
Yeah. So that was a big deal anyway. Like, we've done it.
Year long.
52, 5-2, year long.
The deck of cards plus 1. No way. That's a whole
Nope,
deck.
just straight
two.
up deck.
So PJ and I are I believe that specific episode was Aladdin's Hammer. It was about a camping trip that we're fresh off of, and we have a lot to say about it. And then we took a break to smoke a cigarette. The TV's still on, closed captioning.
No. It was while we were recording.
Was it?
I think I was looking at something on the internet, and Kelly had posted something on Facebook about, I just heard Michael Jackson died. Is this true? We were like, whoa, we need a cigarette anyway. Let's hit pause
Let's
and
take a break.
Look this up.
Yeah, best cigarette of my life, I'd say.
Yeah.
R.I.P. MJ.
So immediately both of us are just thinking, we got to write a joke.
Yeah.
And I've got to go to work.
Oftentimes when I'm recording in Yakima with you, PJ, it's like I got work in 3 hours. I got work in 3 hours. Will you watch my daughter?
Yeah.
And then, so that's how it ends up happening. So PJ, right at the time that we take a break, maybe we were done for that particular episode, and you go into the shower, and I'm already on Twitter, like just sitting in front of Twitter trying to make a Michael Jackson joke. That's all I'm trying to do in the world. And I'm making a pun on every song I can think of, but that's not funny enough because I Google it and it's already been done 10 times in 10 minutes. And then PJ, you come running, darting out of the shower.
Probably the first time in years you've seen me with no shirt on.
And it was worth it to you.
Because I said, I was literally started screaming, I've got it. I've got it.
With a towel, I'd say a hand towel wrapped around your crotch at this point. You run out of the bathroom and you're like, I got it. And he took over the computer and he posted.
No, I grabbed my cell phone and I texted it to Twitter, which was a bummer because it took forever to show up on my Facebook page.
But once it did, Tracy, cast your mind back to the day Michael Jackson died. And then think about 10 minutes later and then think about logging into Twitter.
Like,
And
what
seeing
were the
PJ's
jokes?
update.
Right.
Well, but I mean, what were some of the other jokes? It was all about, like...
It was all obvious. Thriller. That was mine. It was bad.
But it was all about, like, a lot of angels are going to have glitter dust on their ass and stuff like that. So let me walk you through the process of the joke. In the shower, I'm like, what kid did he molest? And I'm like, I can't think of any names. Trying to think of a Macaulay Culkin joke, I guess.
Sure.
And then I'm
But
like,
then you jump to Rory, right? Like, let's make it more obscure a little. Of course.
Rory
We had
never,
the same tweet process.
Rory
me and you.
never got his chance, something like that. And then I was like, oh, dead kids. And then boom, I got it running out of the shower because I'm like,
I'll never forget
and in the
it.
next 5 seconds, someone else is going to come up with this joke. And it was, watch your ass up there, Adam Walsh. The most famous dead kid from Washington State you could think of, at least. Watch your ass up there, Adam Walsh. And that is when I was like, thank you, Twitter, for existing.
Thank you, PJ, for existing.
And I'm pretty sure I favorited that one.
You better have, you asshole. 'Cause
Yeah.
that is the funniest Michael Jackson joke ever.
I'm not
on
gonna
Twitter.
lie, I'm pretty
I'll say it.
I'm pretty sure I got a couple of retweets, even.
It had to.
And I'm sure nobody else. came up with that line.
I didn't know to search for it. That's for sure.
Also, anybody on Twitter, retweet this episode, please.
Oh,
How does that work?
By the way, we haven't given our Twitter address in a while.
I feel like I did just recently, but okay, PJ. Twitter.com/PlanBrohood. Also, while Tracy's here, Twitter.com/BaristaMan.
Barista Man. Spells just like you can't pronounce it.
I'm still PJ the Gay, guys. Never quite reached 100 followers, but I'm working hard.
The show only has...
I'm going to be honest, I'm hardly working.
Because...
Hey, Scott, when'd you walk in?
Tracy, you made a dad joke. What's your...
Home again,
jiggity jog.
Jig, but...
Jog. Well, we said jog. He changed it to jig to be contrary.
Yeah, every time we pull up to the house. And we've also, of course, talked about the famous dad joke of him and mom are waiting for soup or salad. It's mom and dad, so soup, not salad.
Always soup,
ever.
Yeah. Soup, or can we skip the soup and give me 20 cracker packets instead?
Oyster crackers, preferably. So yeah, they'd sit in front of their soup as it pulls up at Denny's. Yeah, that was it. I guess you guys aren't eating.
Guess you guys aren't eating.
You guys got no food today.
Did they ever go on dates? I can't think of they probably never went to a restaurant other than a Sherry's or something like that.
Not since I have memory.
I remember them going to see
Merle Haggard at the Tacoma Dome?
Jerry Maguire once. I remember them talking about that movie when they came home from it. And then also I remember once when mom and dad were like fighting a lot towards the end, and like mom went to go have some me time once. And it was like, we knew it like all week. It was like, oh, Saturday mom's going to just go have a day to herself and not slit her wrist in the bathtub and blame PJ. And, this is what she was going to do. And I just remember her coming home. Dad was with us all day. This is after Melissa. And he's like, so what'd you do? And she's like, oh, I went and saw a movie. And he goes, what movie did you see? And she said, the Leave It to Beaver movie. And he's like, oh, must be nice. Like, fuck you, guy. You really wanted to go see the Leave It to Beaver movie and you missed out. Like, I know Eric Von Detten is a really good actor, but let's calm down a little. I'm sure you can rent it pretty soon. He played Wally, by the way. I didn't go Chris McDonald for Ward or Janine Turner, Dad's TV crush for
That's why I love you.
Yeah.
And that Must Be Nice is one of his go-tos for a whole lot.
It was like, well, you had your day. Let me go ahead and remind you what you're coming home to. Just a not going to help anything asshole comment. I'm on Team Jackie right now. What do you guys?
I'm on team none of them.
Yeah, me too. Would you trade in right now the life you have, stuff like that?
Yes.
To have never been
immediately.
Born? To have never been born?
No.
No.
That question doesn't even make sense.
How about this?
But it's not like you lived and died. It just none of it ever happened.
No.
Let's even
I'd take parts of it away.
Let's even
mainly
say
the death.
You can't do that. Let's even say you take a gamble and you restart as something else.
When I
like,
bring
do
up
you want to go to a complete gamble to where it's either like the baby that died in train spotting, or maybe you'll be born into a multi-billion-dollar family? If it was a complete crapshoot like that, compared to the life you have now, would you trade it all in for just randomness?
So you're saying
There's a lot of rich fucking kids out there, dude. There are a lot of rich fucking kids,
including that train spotting baby.
Okay, how about this one? Having an asshole father like you had, or being in Tim's shoes and having a different father?
Interesting question.
I mean, he had an asshole father who, like,
we're talking about Tracy here.
No. I'm talking about his stepfather, like the father figure
I'm talking
he had.
True, but I'm talking about.
Yeah, let's not bring Mike into it.
Oh, okay, but you're saying, would we rather have someone like our dad or like your dad?
No,
like you as a dad.
As a dad, right.
So if we're going by the direct Tim model, then we have you as a dad, and then we have asshole stepdad Mike. That seems worse, because he was every bit as mean as our dad.
I don't think that was Tracy's question, though. Let's say we only have the choice to have Dad as a dad or Tracy as a dad. Dad as a dad pretended until we were 18.
But what does that mean? Did Tracy live with us until we were 18?
Tracy ditched his kid immediately, basically.
but
is that not fair to say?
Yeah. So
that's the point I'm getting.
So then we grew up with asshole stepdad Mike.
But would you rather grow up without a father at all?
I would rather do it the way we did it than the way Tim did it, because we've still got the same asshole dad as Tim had in his stepfather.
Right. But we don't consider Tracy an asshole. But don't you think Tim does?
No,
at least
I'm talking about the dad he was raised with in his house, which was his stepdad.
That's not what I was talking about. I excluded Mike immediately.
Nick, you're very confused. The question is the childhood that we had with our dad, or the childhood Tim had with his dad.
Right.
So Tim's childhood was having a dad who didn't live with him, and then also having that stepdad. So if I'm going to have an asshole dad, I would rather that be my only dad the way it was with us, and not the way it was with Tim.
Instead of two dads, one asshole and one indifferent one.
Right.
Yeah, and then in Tim's case, it being an asshole who like constantly brings up the fact that you're not even my kid.
2 questions. How does my 2 dads play into this? And then also, you really the second one isn't a question. You really cut me down earlier. You really made me feel like an asshole
Just now?
for the first time in 101 episodes.
Just now?
Yeah.
Before?
Yeah.
But you were wrong.
You're
You
like,
were-
dude, you
you-
don't understand.
But you didn't. You weren't. I said, are you asking, would you rather have the childhood we had or the childhood Tim had with the dad? And you guys said yes. That's
Yeah, but
exactly
then
what
you
I'm
brought
talking
the
about.
stepdad immediately into
Because
it. and I
that
feel
was
like
Tim's
that's a
That was
childhood.
part of his childhood, yeah.
I know.
Because
but
that was it. You asked literally, do I want to switch places with Tim?
I can't
and the
wait
answer
to cut
is
this
no.
part out. I can't wait.
The answer is no because of his stepdad. You're like, no, his stepdad doesn't have anything to do. Yes, he did. He had everything to do with it. He had more to do with it than Tracy, and fuck you, Tracy, for that. No, I
yeah,
like
but
that.
who's sitting here now with you?
That's
Tim
true.
or me?
I used to bring Tim to like your coffee shop, and then be like, "Why did I do that?" Like,
Why would you do that?
Tracy will probably hate me for because I hung out with Tim all the time, and a lot of times I would be like an asshole show off, like, "Oh yeah, I go see your dad at the coffee shop all the time. You want to go down there? It's cool. I'll get you in." It was shit like that.
I know the owner.
And I'd be like, "Well, when I go by myself,
I know the secret knock.
Yeah. It's like, well, when I go by myself, we hang out for an hour and laugh nonstop. And when I bring Tim over, we leave 7 minutes later and none of us said one word to each other. Why did I bring Tim over? Because it was just, it was always crazy. It was, and I was an asshole because I would always try to like prove it to Tim that like, because he'd always be like, "Oh yeah, he's my dad." And I'd be like, "Yeah, he likes me better. Let me go ahead and prove that to you right now."
How old were me and you, PJ, when Tracy first told us, "I wish you were my sons"?
I don't think that ever happened because Tracy doesn't want any sons. I guess
but if you had to have
them,
sons,
I've always said I wish I'd have gotten along. I wish I'd have had. You guys would have been the personality I was looking for. Tim should have had the personalities you guys have got.
right? And how did that jump?
It's I mean
It's in the genes, right?
He happened to get his
Because I
mother.
feel-
Yeah, he got his mother.
Because he was so much like his mom. But the thing about Tim was that like, not that it's something to embrace, but he wouldn't embrace it at all. He would just deny it. He'd be like, "No, man, I'm all allers," which first of all is nothing to be super proud of.
No.
But then he's just not being himself ever. He's
He
like
was trying to
super
impress.
sensitive, like his mom was. Like, "Oh, what does that mean?" and stuff like that. Or I'm gonna cry and make a scene. He tried to fit in and
Tried
it just
too
didn't
hard.
work.
I always tried too hard. I
Try
always
way
has,
too
yeah.
hard. Loudest laugher in the room, as the home videos will tell us later on.
At the jokes he never got.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to the coffee shop, you're saying you dragged him in. Aside from that, when me and PJ would show up, either together or individually, how did you feel about that? Because I love the hot chocolate from time to
I
time.
Yeah.
looked forward to it. I thought it was fun.
It
I
went
was
on
always
for
happy
years
with it.
too. Like it could have been one thing when like we were younger and we would walk down there, and then to like the end when I worked right next door to you at that
Right, at the video store, right?
Let's put it this
And now
way.
it's all a Lowe's, right?
It was, it's all a Lowe's now.
Hardware store. Lowe's.com, I assume.
Heartbreaking hardware store. No, there was never a moment where I went, oh, fuck, they're here.
Yeah, they're walking up
Yeah.
again.
Never happened.
Because, I mean, this was your shop. I feel like it's safe to say, I'm going to step into your shoes to say this. Best job you ever had?
Best job I ever had.
Mm-hmm. And you worked there for how many years?
14.
It was an espresso shop outside of a chain grocery store, right?
Small-
In
It was
Tacoma.
not a
grocery-
chain.
It wasn't a chain,
Oh,
you're
oh,
right.
but
But it
mega-
was huge
mega-
for being an individual
Yeah,
store.
but I never saw another Mega Foods anywhere.
There was like 3. There's one left.
I remember there were times I was so depressed, like living at home, that I'd be looking at the clock being like, oh, Tracy opens the stand at like, when was it, 5 a.m. or something?
Usually.
And I'd be like, oh, it's 2 now. If I just wait 2 more hours, I can start walking down there, and then I'll be there by the time he opens. And there was a lot of times I was there like fucking bright and early with you. Like I had nothing else to do. A lot of that was after you had left, and I was living in that house.
I'd cry too if I'd left.
With internet girlfriend dad. And like I'd just be like, all right, I guess I'll just kill time until I can walk down to the coffee shop, and that'll kill an hour of my pathetic life, and then I'll come home, and hopefully by then I'll be able to go to sleep without having nightmares where I'm shadowboxing dad.
Well, I think I told you guys once that, you guys would come by and say, hey, whatever, and you'd be there 5 minutes, and it was enjoyable. But it was only 5 minutes. Your dad would come by.
Yeah. And he's like,
and that 5 minutes would feel like 5 hours.
Yeah. And he's like, hey, I got custody for the next 6 hours, and I can't spend any money, so
4
I'll
hours.
get free hot chocolate from
4
you.
hours.
Yeah.
Free hot chocolate from you and bore the shit out of you for 3 hours. Yeah.
No, I loved it. I actually did love it.
Yeah, it was
and all the banter between you and your regulars that would come in. I'm like, this is the life I want.
Yeah, you met some cool characters hanging out.
Yeah.
Man, I loved it when I worked at that video store. And you were right there because it was always like, oh, the store is empty. I can run out there and hang out for a bit. Or like, oh, I'm on my lunch break. You come into the video store and we talk movies and watch that fucking DVD that played the same 8 trailers for the 8 months that I worked there.
Yeah, I worked at Suncoast for a while, and it was the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, let's watch Austin Powers Goldmember trailer on loop again and again and again.
And I think that
for an 8-hour shift.
I think that had a lot to do with how I got that job at that video store, too, because
you loved Goldmember?
Well, I would show up, and they would be like, this is way before Goldmember came out, and they would be like... I was like, oh, yeah, that's my uncle right there. And there was this lady, Dawn, who, like, fucking worshipped you that worked there. And she was one of the managers. So, yeah, I got hired on there. I will always say that I worked at the worst video store in the history of video stores. You couldn't watch a movie. It was DVDs that they sent you. It was a small chain. There was 4 of them. We were the only one, that location, that had to wear a uniform.
What did that uniform consist of?
Black pants and a Movies and More shirt.
Hate it.
And we'd always get different shirts. Like I remember having an American Pie one once. My favorite one was a green one, and I had this up until about probably 2 years ago. I don't know where it is now. This is also back when I could pull off a medium, because this was a medium. And it was like a green one. I fucking loved it. But you'd go to the other locations, and you could wear whatever you wanted there, which is what I always wanted. But, we had, like, our employee picks movies. I loved that about it.
Yeah, didn't you do a Gary Busey-a-thon?
Yeah, I would always do something like that.
Yeah.
Like
he
Gary
would
Busey
take
theme.
a somewhat obscure actor, or at least somebody that's not relevant in the moment, and let's devote a week to them. I never had the employee picks.
We had a huge porno section. Like, it was fucking great. And, like, I used to seriously be like, yeah, man, I work in a fucking video store. But it was such a weird video store. Like I say, you couldn't watch the movies. Not a great selection, pretty small. This was still mostly VHS. It was one of these stores where, like, people didn't pay for the movies until they returned them. They rented them, like,
which
on
I
good
love
faith.
As a seasball.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Dodges out on things immediately.
And especially in the South in Tacoma, like, it was just fucking terrible. And, like, you'd get people just, like... They would never return movies because they never had the money, and then it got out of control, and like they can't just drop the movie through a slot because we didn't have that, because you got to pay after it. So it's like confrontation after confrontation.
So slots weren't invented in 2000, 2001?
No, I'm just saying that we didn't have
we
didn't have a night drop because we didn't want people just dropping off their movies. They had to bring them in so they could pay for them. And plus, the fucking owner would call. He would call and do shit like this. Like, you'd say, like, oh, South Tacoma Movies and More. This is PJ. How can I help you? And he just wouldn't say anything. Even if you said it again, South Tacoma Movies and More. This is PJ. How can I help you? Still wouldn't say anything. And then you'd go, hello? And then it'd be like, gotcha. Oh, you broke protocol. You said hello instead of again repeating the fucking line. Like, he was this crazy guy. I also remember Dad used to bring Melissa and his visitations around to that video store. And he came in one day, and I was like, yeah, you can come by, you know when we open and stuff. And it was like a full hour before we opened. I just showed up there. I was like, okay, come on in. I punched in the alarm code, and he's there. And then the owner comes knocking on the door, and I was like, fuck, dude, that's the owner. I got my dad and my sister in here. That can't be right. And Dad's like running and hiding behind this shelf of movies. And I'm like, no, go out the front door. You're not going to hide the whole time with Spazzo with you. She's going to start screaming all over the place.
Oh, I thought Spazzo was Dad for a second.
I was like, what the front fucking door? But I'll always remember that. There's very embarrassing for them times that I remember about Mom and Dad. That's one of them with Dad, of him running and hiding from like a video store manager who's paying his son $5 an hour. And then one time when we were supposed to buy anniversary presents for Mom, and you were like, we were at the mall, and you were like, oh, I have my $10 allowance or something, get something for under $10. I remember we're at Mervin's or something, and she was looking through all the stupid just fucking t-shirts, like the, Sleep Zone and stuff like that. And there was a Garfield one, and she looked at the tag, and it was like 13, and she put it away real fast. Like, no, I can't get that one. It's $13, not 10. And I just remember being like, oh, fuck. Like, as a kid, I really worried. Mom and Dad were so worried about finances that I always did.
And as a kid, you really like Garfield t-shirts.
Yeah, that's true. I really liked seeing Mom in a Garfield nightshirt. But no, I did. And maybe that's why I'm so fucking careless with money now. Like, it's the number one argument between Alvina and I is money. It's like, I don't want to worry about it. I don't want to ever, like...
That's naive, though. Can you agree?
But we'd go to Mega Foods, dude, and ask for a quarter, and they'd be like, no, we can't afford that. Are you kidding me? I've not... Spoiling aside, like, I never want to tell my kid, no, I won't give you a quarter for the fucking quarter machine outside of a Safeway. Like, that's what makes grocery shopping tolerable as a little kid.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Coloring books and the egg machines.
Yeah.
But
that was what grocery stores were to us as kids.
But even then, what fun was for your dad when we were kids, when we go grocery shopping?
Sluts.
No. Mom would go into the store and go shopping. He would be in charge of all of us out in the car.
Nice.
And he got off on that, right?
Oh, yeah.
He loved it.
You know what he'd do when he knew Mom was taking a while? He'd go, here she is. No, she's not.
Oh.
Oh, wait. Oh, that's not her.
Dad
That
humor.
was
Dad humor
yep.
before he was ever a dad.
Here comes Mom. Oh, no. They didn't say psych yet back then. So. But he would have if he could have. And laughed his ass
I thought
off.
my dad invented
Hey, I got
psych
you guys.
as a
That was a
phrase.
real gas.
But my mom would have thought he said ass and hit him. So.
Here's a keen trick.
I also think Dad was, I think, legitimately patented.
Patented it?
What did he patent? Did he patent jangling keys?
Oh, that's a good one.
Or, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that
Must
was
be
what I was
nice.
going for. Yeah. Must be nice.
It's
Hot
been-
dog. We have a wiener. Is that
It's
what?
been a real pressure.
Glad you could be with me. It's been a real pressure.
18-year-old big babe with big hooters. Blonde babe, not big babe. That's what he had.
You ruined that. Earlier today at the bar, I had, I think I was talking to you, Tracy, outside of the bar. We were smoking, PJ wasn't, and I come back in, and I'm like, pop quiz, PJ.
What would Dad, if ever the subject came up as if you had $1 million or if you were rich?
If my dad was rich, what would he first do with the money?
Wow. To get his balls back?
This is when he was married to my mom, and he was the leader.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
It was always 18-year-old blonde babe with big hooters. Like, that was Dad's catchfriase.
What a sleazeball, right?
Definitely sneeze.
I know you disowned.
Why not a redhead?
That and Nick, can I sleep with you?
Yeah, that was the second worst, I'd say. I know you disowned your son immediately.
Right.
But if you hadn't, you wouldn't say something that sleazy.
No.
Or that cornball. Like, it's sleazy and it's corny. That's why I hate it.
Yeah, well...
It's corn sleaze,
Well,
which
let's
I'm
put
not
it
a
this
fan
way.
of.
There's no way you guys got your sense of humor from your dad.
Where did we get it then? Because it wasn't Mom either.
From your late grandfather. My dad.
Yeah, but he was probably pretty fucking corny if you think back, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't have any
I heard
only in his poetry, but it was heartfelt, so it was.
I'm sure that he didn't drop the F bomb at the very least.
No, but he couldn't. But he
it was
would
a
have.
different time.
But he would have, and he would.
A lot of
there was sincerity to it. There was thinking and a little bit of cleverness. to what he did.
He wasn't like my dad and married to my mom in the sense that he wasn't like sort of degrading to grandma and like he's in charge and he's the one to be feared. It was the opposite.
It was the opposite. Yeah.
Well, then I can see him being a way cooler guy than Dad was.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Grandpa invent the what later became a dad joke to me and you? Did you take your ugly pills today? Because that one's pretty fun.
I think that came from him. Yeah,
I think
I'm pretty
to say
sure
he invented it is probably a stretch, but I think he started it in that family.
Let's Google it. Google.
But see,
another funny joke is anybody that has a PDA of any kind, anybody that can get on the internet at a bar, I call Google now. Google it, Google.
Google.
That's a good one.
No, it wasn't. Tracy, you were saying something.
Hey Google, what's up with Bud?
Yeah. No, his sense of humor was, it wasn't forced like your dad. Oh, plus it was he wouldn't run it into the ground.
Yeah.
He wouldn't repeat himself.
Sure.
I mean, he may use it again, but not every single fucking time in the same situation.
Yeah.
So PJ, you do things that I know you think are being ironically funny, like when it comes to dad humor, and you are a dad now. And when Sophie's of a certain age, maybe you'll text her back and say, "Cool fool," all the time.
Yeah.
Or everything you say has to rhyme.
If cool
but I feel
fool...
like, sounds good, Ed Wood. That's another example. But the point is, like, you call Tracy Traceface just to be lame. Like, you know you're being lame when you do it.
I mean...
You say,
it's
thank
cool
God.
fool, Traceface, sounds good, Ed Wood. Those are all bad jokes.
Let's unload it, boat it.
Yeah.
And it's the whole idea of repetition. Every time I hear "thank God," I'm always saying, "You're welcome." Well,
Yeah.
It does get old after a while.
It does. I'll tell you
but
that
it becomes
firsthand.
the point is, it becomes automatic, and you don't realize
Sure,
it's become
sure.
automatic.
Oh, I realize I'm saying it at this point.
I know, but what I'm asking, I guess, is does Dad realize that too? When he used to
No.
make
No,
the
he
ugly pills?
doesn't.
No.
No.
But maybe we just like to think that. And Sophie will someday resent you for having a lame sense of humor that you're aware of.
First of all, I'm not saying that I don't have a lame sense of humor.
Oh, you definitely
especially
do.
compared to what Sophie's will be like a decade from now.
Sure.
But Dad,
What's
seriously...
an iPod going to be called a decade from now?
But I can
A
say...
brain implant.
I may be saying it
Implant.
ironically in the sense that, like I say, I text you, "It's cool, fool," and at this point, I know you're going to tell me, "Just stop." But other friends...
So you're counting on me to shit on you.
Yeah. But other friends who I text, they've never, ever, ever mentioned it to me, and 20 times a week, they get 50 different rhymes. You know what I mean? Like, "It's all good, Edward," or "It's cool, fool," or just anything I can rhyme, I try to rhyme. And now I will steal my favorite from you, which was, "When are you coming, E.E. Cummings?" That's going to go out to them, too. And
Come on, tell me that's not great, Tracy.
they fucking never mention it. But Dad was always like he really thought he was saying it for the first, or just like, you know, when someone says hi to me at work, I have my go-to thing that I say, "Hey, what's up, buddy?" And then even if they're like, "How are you?" I go, "What's up, buddy?" Like, it's just so automatic. I'm not even thinking about it. And that's how Dad was with his, "Oh, I guess you're not getting any," or pop quiz. What was every time we came home from a movie, every time he picked us up from a movie, what was his question for us?
Oh, wow. Give me not 10 minutes, 8 this time.
I can't believe you don't remember this.
Every time we came home from a movie.
Me and Alvina do it as an inside joke all the time now.
I was going to defer to Tracy, but obviously you are not me. You wouldn't know this.
No.
No idea.
The question
No
would be,
idea.
well, was it everything you were hoping it would be?
Oh, of course.
Every time.
Every time.
I don't think I'm like that. Plus, I don't scream at my kid. Or at my wife in front of my kid. It's all different.
So what was he trying to say, that your choice of movies isn't what he wanted?
Yeah,
so
it was kinda like, was it worth it?
Was it worth it?
Was it worth it? Are you glad you went? Are you glad that you made me come pick you up? You know, stuff like that. Because it was always a lot of like, "Oh, really? I have to take you." Which, let's give Dad enough credit. Occasionally he would drop us off and pick us up from movies and shit like that.
Sure you would.
I mean, he did shit. He was just a very unhappy and misery loves company type guy.
Exactly. He had no concept of how to be just, hey, did you have fun at the movie? I wish I could have gone with you.
Yeah, it goes back to must be nice.
Exactly.
You know, like, oh, you pieces of shit just run around seeing movies. You don't know that you're just supposed to sit around home and cry over bills and fucking watch TV nonstop and hope some softcore comes on.
And not just any TV. It was Briscoe County Jr.
And you were supposed to appreciate his martyr.
I will give Dad credit for one thing, movie related also. When me and you went to see American Pie, you were just old enough to see R-rated movies, right? You had just turned 18. And Dad dropped us off because neither of us drove at that point. And I feel like it was kind of out of the way just to have an hour and a half to himself, because I think Mom had already left him at this point. Maybe. We'll IMDb American Pie and then get back to you. Yeah, I remember whatever the usher or the ticket taker was. Yeah, you'd forgotten your ID, but you were legitimately of age.
Yeah.
And Dad had to drive back to the theater to see American Pie, a dick and fart movie.
You don't remember how insanely upset he was about that?
No.
He was so mad about that.
I was literally telling this story to say, hey, Dad was a good guy sometimes.
He made me feel like such a fucking asshole that day.
He did it to make you feel like an asshole.
It wasn't worth it. I would have rather gone home had I known what was going to happen. He flipped out.
Except for American Pie was hilarious. I mean, granted, not as hilarious as American Pie.
I was the one who had to call him. I mean, he flipped the fuck out. There was a time when we had planned a trip to Seattle and had no way of getting home. And we ended up calling Dad to come pick us up. And he flipped the... I mean, can you imagine that?
And here's the funny part. That's how he treated us when we were kids, too. He had that attitude. So you brought up earlier him and I having gone to a concert one time. That was Paul McCartney back in, I think it was 1990.
Yeah.
And this is when I was trying to reach out to him, be adult to adult, not big brother, little brother kind of a thing. And he, like I said before... he had turned me on to the Beatles, so I thought it'd be cool to take him to see Paul McCartney. And as we're entering the stadium and we're getting ready to go get our seats, he realizes he doesn't have his ticket. And he can't find it, and he had dropped it in the crowd of people. And we spent maybe an extra 20 minutes looking for it.
Did he blame you?
And no, but all I'm thinking is, here's the opportunity where I could be the asshole to him that he always was to us.
Yeah.
I didn't do it. And I didn't take advantage of it, but there was no appreciation from him in the fact that he had done to me the kind of thing he hated the rest of us having done to him. And by then he'd had you guys, so the things that you were doing to him, and it was kind of a sad situation when you think about it.
I mean, we've told an almost identical story where he lost keys to a trailer we were renting and just freaked out on us. It was all our fault. We must have
for 3 hours. It was our fault
for hours
until
and
he found them in his own pants pocket.
In the pocket of the pants he was wearing. He was so convinced that we were such fucking dumbasses that we took his keys and lost them. He never thought to reach into his pants pocket. Did he find that ticket in the crowd or what?
Yeah, he eventually found it. It was on the ground, and we got to go see the show.
So it was Paul McCartney ticket. Where was this? Tacoma Dome, I'm guessing,
Tacoma
right?
Dome.
How is he acting during that time? Is he calm and collected at all, or is it...
There's three C's.
He's frantic, but he's not losing his temper because there's nobody to blame but himself. So he's...
But if me or you or Mom had been there...
Yeah, see, that's the thing, is that when you were kids, you were at a certain age, and Nick and I were young enough to where like he could throw all the blame on us. In fact, the fucking trailer keys thing was probably the next day, and he's like, not this time.
He refused to apologize to us for the trailer keys.
Later.
Yeah, of course.
But I got, in a sense, too, I got karmic revenge on him on the whole thing, because he was a big fan of, other musicians and whatnot, of Heart, the band Heart, because they were from Seattle. I learned about them from him. So... we had gotten really good seats on the floor.
Ooh.
Way better than I thought we were going to get.
Barracuda. That's it.
And so I was wearing contact lenses at the time, and they had the air conditioning on their bed, and they were starting to dry out. So I told them I'm going to go take care of my contacts. So I had to go to the restrooms upstairs, went up the stairs, took care of the eyes, realized, oh shit, when I wanted to go back down, there's more people. Oh, there's an elevator. So the doors open. I see this blonde who looked vaguely familiar, but I had been in retail for so long, I figured that must be a customer of mine. So I went into the elevator right behind her. There were some guys in there, and this short, pudgy brunette in the back of the elevator car. So I stood dressed real nice. So I stood there next to her and I said, hey. Then I did a double take and looked at her again and said, hi, and realized that brunette's Ann Wilson. That's Nancy Wilson. That's Cameron Crowe, her husband, standing there talking to this band member from Heart. And I'm thinking, oh, Scott's going to be so jealous.
Yeah, sick burn, Dad. What year is this?
This is 90.
Okay, and you recognize Cameron Crowe?
Yeah, because he had just been...
He had just done Say Anything.
Yeah,
he hadn't even done singles
and
yet.
I had seen him...
But he got really famous for writing Fast Times at
and for
Ridgemont
dating a
High.
chick from Heart. Yeah.
But I had also seen him on TV 2 days earlier on MTV being interviewed.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, and I put, whoa, I recognized who he was right away because I just seen him. And
Who's he being interviewed by in 1990 MTV?
Probably Kurt Loder, right?
Chris Hardwick, Idellis,
probably Kurt Loder,
Kennedy.
he's still there.
Nah.
But the thing that got me about that was like,
Martha
what are they
Quinn.
doing here? And I'm like, oh, wait, it's a local band technically from Seattle who's not going to go see Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
So it was my brush with fame moment, and I didn't blow it. All I was thinking about was how Scott's.
I remember
like
when we went to that Hot Fuzz preview, which thank you for the ticket, Nick. And
Sure, it was free.
Literally bumping into Simon Pegg and
Nick Frost.
urinating right next to Nick Frost. We were sitting probably
And Edgar Wright,
just
too,
right
the director.
across
Like, they
the
were all
aisle
hanging out.
from
Yeah.
Edgar Wright. Yeah. But I mean, I met Kyle MacLachlan at Olive Garden,
Which we've talked about,
gooped
yeah.
out on him big time. We talked about
Not
how
as
I
much
love-
as the coworkers surrounding you.
Yeah, that's true. They were worse, but I told him how much I respected Blue Velvet, like he cares, and then
Speaking of which,
And then Pardo.
R.I.P. Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper.
and then
I
Pardo.
did it.
Pardo was
Pardo was our
That was-
most recent
that was
celebrity.
the dream.
Oh yeah,
Can't think of one I'd rather have met. Maybe Colin Farrell.
me
back
neither.
in the
At this point in my
American
life, Jimmy Pardo was the most important celebrity,
And I believe
we met him,
I believe we've
and he was
all,
nice to us.
but we have all three met at different times. One biggest celebrity, of course, is J.P. Patches.
That's true.
That's true.
I met
At separate times,
I met
you
him.
didn't meet J.P. Patches.
I met him back in the '60s.
I met that fool.
and Gertrude.
Yeah, I met fucking Gertrude.
So
B and I represent.
any
Tacoma.
local listeners that are 50 or older, how
Do
old are
not
you?
go to the
Tracy?
B&I. Dude, I went back when I used to go drive by the house all the time. I'd go to B&I sometimes too.
Sure, you would.
And plus Alvina and I lived in
Did
Tacoma.
we ever
for 2
figure out
years.
what B&I stood for?
No, two people, right?
Right. Let's not question it.
Two
Move
people
on.
that made the story. But Alvina and I lived in Tacoma, and I'd be like, we gotta go to B&I.
They had a water slide that never worked.
Dude,
also,
it was
And a
nasty. by the
gorilla
time
that
we got
never
there.
worked.
a gorilla. I remember
Ivan
the
the
gorilla that
gorilla.
never
By the
worked.
time we got there, it was seriously
Ivan.
like an ice cream place, a skate park, like half of an arcade, and by half of an arcade, I mean half the machines worked,
A
and like
carousel.
$4 stores, and that was it. That was all that was inside
And the carousel.
B&I.
Can't forget
Yeah,
that.
there was the carousel inside of the arcade, and we'd go there every now and then and play. But man, fucking, they used to be a little funner when we were kids.
Not the B&I. Think about it.
I
What
don't
fun
know.
did we ever have there?
We could sit there and watch people play mini golf and wish we had a happier family. I got a foursome right here. I wish we had 50 cents.
He would go to Ivan the gorilla. Will you be my daddy?
I remember instances of going to the B&I because they had an ice cream thing. And I was actually talking to Alvina about this the other day. When we were kids and I had money, like especially when I was stealing money from the paper route,
Sure.
I spent money so freely on you, dude. I'd be like, yeah, let me buy you an ice cream. And you'd be like, hey, you should go collect some illegal money and we'll go to a movie. You would never buy me shit. And I remember once you went to a Mariners game and mom and dad gave you money and told you that you had to buy me something. And you brought me a Mariners pencil, which whoever you went with, I think it was Jonathan Franklin,
No,
wasn't it?
you're wrong. Jason Kingsbury.
Jason Kingsbury.
And we listened to the Chipmunks the whole way there.
Who did I just say?
Ride.
I think I
already
made
forgot.
up a name. I think I said like
Jonathan Franken or something.
Jonathan
like that.
Franklin. That was my 6th grade best friend.
Yeah, that's not it. Jason Kingsbury.
Yeah, Jason Kingsbury, who told me that
I would have bought you a better
that pencil was free. Walking in, everybody who walked in got a pencil.
I barely remember that.
You
but
were
I will-
always such a fucking Jew with
I
me.
had $12. Okay, I think Dad literally gave me $12, and we went to the Mariners game, the only Mariners game I've ever still been to.
Yeah.
And you weren't there, but I was supposed to get you something. Of course, free pencil day. That's your price.
I mean, I
And
understand.
then I bought 2 inflatable hammers for $6 each, and didn't give you either.
Yeah, I know. You keep both, right?
And then they popped immediately.
Yeah. But fuck, man, I just felt like I was always spending money on you, no problem. Like willy-nilly. Let's go see a movie. And then you're like, screw you, I got a piggy bank.
Is this your way of telling me that you spent too much on me this weekend?
No, this is my, we have nothing else to talk about. Fucking asshole Nick. Attack.
Tracy, what's the most pissed off you've ever been at me?
At you?
Yeah. I probably knocked over a lamp or something, right?
What? Well, indirectly at you was when you guys were neighbors of mine and you would come over and you were just being toddlers and running around knocking shit
Were we
over.
toddlers or were we acting like toddlers at 12?
Okay, no. You were in your what they call the tween years,
Uh-huh.
and
I was big into Twilight.
and you guys would just be bored shitless because your parents weren't paying attention. Yeah, I wasn't entertaining you. We were playing video games, Coleco or
You weren't
Nintendo.
interesting to me until I was at least 14.
right. But so although I was mad at you for knocking this shit down, I was more mad at your parents for not being parents. And
I feel like that's
preventing
easy for
this
you to
from
say
happening.
now, but you were mad at me in the moment. Like, I'm just an asshole.
No,
It's
actually,
like,
no. Because
certain
what
dogs I encounter recently, I'm
because
like, stop
you're-
barking.
years later, when your dad was coming over with your sister to visit me, she went out and flopped her ass right into the fountain out front, the bird bath fountain out front, and busted it. And I was more mad at your dad than your sister for that because your dad didn't do shit about it.
Yeah.
Didn't prevent it or didn't apologize for it or anything.
Yeah.
That was your fault for not locking the gate.
True. I learned my lesson.
You know, when Melissa comes over, you reinforce every bird bath.
It must have been, it must have been, it must have been a happy time. It must have been, it must have been, it must have been a happy time.